Welcome back, y'all, to In the Wild, and joining me is a very special guest. She is the Director for Career Services, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about those things, I guess, before graduation.
That's right.
We'll
be here before you know it.
Yeah, so give a warm jagger welcome to Julie Goley. How's it going?
It's going great.
Thanks for being here. And yeah, as we get closer to graduation, how is your office? Is it busier? Is this like a busy time of year for y'all? How is that?
You know, right after our spring break, students are usually focused on exams and connecting with us. And we've got a couple of our bigger events here in the later weeks of the term. So it's a busy time. And then usually at graduation, it kind of slows up for a couple of weeks and then it picks back up again because they've graduated. So now what, right?
Exactly. For those who aren't familiar, could you talk a little bit about how your office and your team is structured to help students?
Sure. Our office is often thought of as an end destination, your senior year, but we really work with students from the time that they are here up until a year after they graduate, because we give our seniors a year after graduation to work with our services, knowing that some may be pursuing something for a gap year or just struggling with finding something. So we do career counseling, career assessment. So oftentimes we're working with that freshman or sophomore who's looking at changing a major, or they've decided on a major, but they're not really sure what they want to do, to internships, student employment, part-time work, full-time work, graduate school preparation, all the things.
All the things. With our team, you certainly helped us out with giving us awesome interns and things like that. So yeah, how often or how soon should students get connected with career services if they haven't already?
Yeah. I suggest that at least annually they do. Think of it like a checkup. So even if you've got a job, you're happy with where you are in your trajectory, I think at least annually do a check-in, check-up at the beginning of your academic year, just to see where you are, what's on point, things that you might need to be working on, because there might be things in meeting with us that you hadn't thought about. Maybe you created a LinkedIn account, your freshman year, but you didn't really know, I filled out my profile, but I don't really know how to utilize that. Let us talk about that, because now if you're a junior or a senior, it's a great time to start, building those networks and learning how to utilize that vehicle. So a lot of things students just don't know until they come and meet with us and they go, oh, okay, maybe I do need to do this.
So that makes me think of a thought that I had earlier, where I saw on TikTok the other day of this woman talking about how important career services is, and that students should be required to have like certain touch points with career services before they're even allowed to graduate. And I thought that was pretty interesting, especially since I knew you were going to be coming on to the show. So what are your thoughts on that, of like requiring students to be in contact with your office?
I think anytime you require something, it can benefit a lot of people, but there are going to be people that just resent it because it's required, right? So I tend to take more of an approach of, I would like to see core career services areas and competencies established in the curriculum. So if you're going through from your general ed into your major specific, at least there's touch points on resume writing, interviewing skills, you're building up your social media profile, how to use that for employment, professionalism, different things like that would just be incorporated. And then that way they're getting it in the class, tied to their discipline of interest. And then we are just adding value on top of that. Now, certainly I would love to see more students, and if it was required, we would. But I know, sometimes if you're not wanting and you're not willing, you're not going to really take to heart what resources we do have. So it's a tricky one.
That's a very valid point, that for some people, if they don't necessarily find value in it, they're not going to take advantage of it.
Right. And most people underestimate what it's going to take. They underestimate what it's going to take to land their first internship, or to land their first job after graduation, or to even really identify what is a good opportunity for me upon graduation. So oftentimes we are valued after the fact. But, I think that's why it's important for students to be proactive and check on that. Because, certainly if you aren't meeting certain academic benchmarks and you're trying to go into a highly competitive, professional program, we need to have a talk, because you need to be looking at alternative plans if you're not hitting certain benchmarks that are just necessary for what you think you want to do.
I think competitive and just competing is like a key word, because when I talk to friends, interns that I've worked with, and others, just students on campus, I think a lot of times they forget that they're competing.
Right.
Because they'll have a resume and they're like, I'm confident in my resume, and I don't have to prepare for the interview because I'm just gonna tell them of how awesome I am, or and that's enough. And it's
Right.
like, you really need to practice, because you may be competing against 50 or 100 other people for
Right.
this one position, and it may be a local job, or it may be a big, big deal, which we still have big deals locally, but
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. Because it's one of those things that in the days before technology was so dominant in a job search, you saw your competition because you were at job fairs, pretty routinely, and you were seeing the people in line, and you were seeing, resumes submitted and things like that. With technology, is click and submit. You don't necessarily know on the other end that you're one of hundreds of candidates. You don't necessarily know on the other end that your resume may not have even been seen because of applicant tracking systems. If it's not in a certain format, it's not going to be seen by the human eye. So that's just a lot of things, again, students don't really understand to really appreciate how stiff the competition can be, even in a tough economy, or a strong economy or weak economy. It's still tough, especially entry level. That's the hardest one. Once you get that going, it tends to get better.
With there being so many resources available for free, how do y'all at Career Services kind of distinguish the resources that you use to make sure that students will want to use them?
Yeah, we've got a couple of different, what I call staple career resources that we have. Handshake is our job board. That's our campus job board, but it's used by 1,400 other college campuses. So employers, all Fortune 500 companies use that, and employers can post, one job and direct it to multiple locations. So it's a huge platform for internships and for entry-level work because it is specific to college students. Stepping Blocks is our new platform that the state has provided, and that's a great platform to do research on jobs and research on majors. So the cool thing about that is you've got over 80% of the workforce data in there. So the data mining is really powerful on it. So you can go in there and log in with it's called Stepping Blocks, and it's off of our website, but you log in through your campus email, and it can tell you, okay, I'm a communications major, what I'm interested in, entry level, media relations specialist. Well, it will tell you a lot about the occupation, obviously, competitive wages, skills that are needed. But the nice thing I see is it will show you, and it won't show you names, but it will show you trajectories of AU graduates in those areas. So you can see, okay, well, maybe if I'm wanting this, the likely thing I should be looking for is this type of job. So you can actually see different map points of graduates because the data is so powerful. So that's really fun because they can go, okay, if my ultimate job is to do this, what is a realistic type of target for an entry-level position that I need to be looking for?
That is game changing.
Yeah. It's a very powerful tool. And it's something that we're excited about because it personalizes that experience. And they can look at it from, institutional data, but they can also look and go, okay, in the Southeast, what are the most attractive opportunities? They can look for jobs on there as well. There's a quick assessment that they can do in like 30 seconds that's very close to like the Myers-Briggs inventory. So students can do that all within that portal. So we've been pleased with that because it's usually with assessments, you'll use it once and then you're done. You get what you need and you move on. But this product has those types of capabilities to make it more personal because you can see AU data. What do graduates who have an English major typically do? What's their career trajectory? Really helps you to look at that.
That's awesome. I wish we had a tool like that when I was getting ready to graduate, because I think that could have given me a lot of insights on what those next steps look like. Because I think everyone, when they get ready to graduate, they have, those goals and there's those dreams, whether they're like realistic or really out there. And then after you cross the stage and you don't have a job lined up, it's like your perspective changes a lot.
It does. It does. And I don't care. It's a very lonely, isolated feeling. You feel like it's only happening to you. And that's where we really want that contact with the students and with our graduates, because they're not alone. And we see this all the time. And it's important for them to make connections with us so we can tailor that job search strategy specific to that person, whether they are open to relocate, if they've got certain limitations that need to be considered, to really help them make sure that they're looking at every possible, factor or resource. Hiration is another new tool we have, and that's a resume system. So when I talked about applicant tracking systems, that's typically what, when you click submit, it goes into an applicant tracking system. Most of the time, most of your medium to large employers have these. And so it's only queried based on the database, and the format has to be a very specific format or certain things don't come through correctly. So we see a lot of students who will use templates that are just colorful and lots of different columns and boxes, and the reality is it might look cool when you're looking at it visually, but when you submit it somewhere, it's not actually doing what it needs to do to get to the employer. So Hiration helps students create the resume that looks like that. It also helps them with bulleted points. So you might be using the same action verb time and time again. It goes, you might want to consider this one. Or, oh, you said you're interested in media relations. You might want to look at these samples. And it kind of helps you to build a more powerful resume.
Yeah, I've seen some not so great resumes in my time. Yes. So I think that could be a great tool for students who are building a resume. How do y'all go about supporting students who are open, but I guess unsure of what they want to do once they graduate?
We work with those students a lot in just trying to help figure out what their values are. Again, what the priorities are. Are they open to relocate or are they not open to relocate? And it's really individualized. We'll often do a lot of assessments with them. A lot of people think assessments are just for that freshman student. But when you are graduating, the level of knowledge that you have about yourself, and sometimes the lack of perception of knowledge you have about yourself, is very important to reset and take a look at. So those assessments can be really good. So, for example, we offer something called DISC, and that's not really a career inventory, but it's more of a work assessment inventory. So if you were to take it, it would show you the types of things, what you are like in a normal state in your work and what you value in your work. And then it takes a look at what you are in an adaptive state, meaning stress state. And it helps you to see, are you more outgoing? Are you more aggressive? Or are you more, reserved? And we all work with people every day where we can tell, something's up with this person based on a stress level. So, but we don't always realize that ourselves. So that is really helpful. The DISC inventory really helps people understand, what are they like in the workplace? How are they perceived in the workplace? We use it with our dental students. So they do that their first year in dental school, and then they do it in their last year of dental school, because they don't have a lot of the knowledge and skills yet to apply. So their adaptive state might be a little bit different, but when they graduate, it would settle out a little bit because they've got more confidence in the technique and what they're doing. So it's a fun assessment to do, but that's something that can help people. Again, what are your strengths? What is your natural knack? Because a lot of people are going to have the same degree you have. A lot of people may have internship experience, but what is the value that you add specifically? What are you a little better at than the person next to you?
I think that's a really good point to, one, I feel like I need to take that assessment just because I'm curious now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like a lot of times for students, they may not have that experience of working to know what they truly are like in a similar work environment of what they're wanting to get into, so that could help them out.
Right, right. And we see that a good bit. And just, COVID has not helped any of us with regards to socialization skills, and a college student knowing that they've had probably 2 years of disruption at least with the pandemic. That impacts workplace culture too. So they have not had necessarily the same types of experiences that they may get thrown into with a certain level or bar of expectation from employers that they just have not had yet. So that's why it's important to understand a little bit more about workplace behaviors and professionalism and generational differences in the workplace, and how people understanding what people value is so important.
Switching gears a little bit to, I guess, a more personal question. How did you get interested and become a career services professional?
Actually, my undergrad was in psychology, and I knew that I wanted to do something in the helping profession, and I knew I would have to go to graduate school to do it. So when I was in undergrad, I started looking at options. So by the time I graduated, I was going, okay, I'm going to go into high school counseling and get my graduate degree for that, or maybe my master's in social work, or higher ed. And I actually had a residence hall advisor go, you ought to look at this because you really enjoy service and working with college students. And at the time I was working in a freshman English department. And so I landed with that, and career services is a great fit because it's a combination of counseling and administration, which I love. And, you tend to see more of the tangible benefits when you're working with students versus individual counseling that takes a little bit longer and a lot more intensive. So I like being able to offer those tools and resources to help people figure out what's what and watch them take off with that.
And I'm sure that's very fulfilling, being able to see students apply what you discussed in conversations and then get the job or get that opportunity that they've been talking about.
It is. And it's fun when you get to see people like yourself who, you were an orientation leader back in the day. And then you went to you worked for a nonprofit with recruitment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and then made your segue to here. So it's interesting to see those paths. And I love having been here long enough to see where your students become your employers too. That's fun.
So switching gears, I have a little fun game.
All right.
That I wanted to, and I promise it's nothing bad.
Okay.
It's a game called Always, Sometimes, Never, and I'm going to give you different suggestions for resumes, and you're going to tell us if we should always do it, sometimes do it, or never do it.
Okay.
Nothing crazy, I promise.
All right.
So first up, adding your entire physical address to your resume. Always, sometimes, or never?
I would say sometimes. If you are putting it online, never from a security standpoint. But there are some advantages maybe to even at least putting a zip code or something that they know that you are local, or your cover letter indicates, hey, I'm relocating to X place. I tend to be a big fan of the name and just the email, but sometimes you've got to do something to show I have a vested interest in this area, I'm from this area, and you don't want to be discouraged because they see that you've got an address in California and you're looking in Augusta, Georgia.
That's a good point.
So it kind of depends.
Always, sometimes, or never, hyperlink your portfolio, LinkedIn, and other professional documents to your resume.
Always. I think it's kind of, you have to look at the resume as a trailer, almost like a movie trailer to get you to want to see more. And when you put those credentials and that more information there, it drives them to check you out. And, curiosity is a good thing if you're prepared and you have the information to back it up.
You actually kind of touched on this one, so I kind of know where you may answer. Always, sometimes, or never use templates that showcase your personality, including colors.
Never use a template. I would rather, if you're going to demonstrate your creativity, you need to show me you can do it without a template. And it's one thing to have your resume where you are working through a particular contact to get it to someone versus you're clicking and submitting into, a major organization like a Delta or AT&T or Verizon, where there's going to be an applicant tracking system that may not read, your boxes and your multiple columns. So it depends. I like a little color though. I'm not a fan of no images, no pictures. That's a never, unless they ask for it for some reason.
That was literally the next one, including a headshot photo.
Yeah, not a fan of that. Not a fan of the pictures in the resume. And really, if they're linking to check you out more, they're probably going to see that anyway. But I just don't. What's the purpose of doing that?
Yeah, I feel like at this day and age, everyone is going to do the Google search or the LinkedIn search to see like where you are. So yeah, that makes sense to not throw that on there.
And I'd rather let me learn about you first before I see you. Pique my curiosity because of your qualifications for the job, not because of what I'm seeing in an image.
Yeah. Next up, printing out copies of your resume to hand out during interviews.
Always. I think that's important. You never know who you're going to interview with or how many. So I think it's good to have a couple of different copies of your resume ready to go just in case. And you might have that hurried and multitasking manager who got swiped into the interview at the last minute and hasn't even looked at your information. So it's kind of like that's your first job to manage up. Be prepared and have it with you.
Putting non-relevant work experiences to fill out space on your resume.
That's a tough one. Sometimes, because what you might think is not relevant may be relevant. So, for example, even if you have a lot of experience in your field, but maybe you've been, it's spring break, Masters Week. We've got 250 students out working at Augusta National right now. So those students having that on their resume is a great calling card because they have to aspire to a certain level of customer service in what they're doing, even if it's, giving out pimento cheese sandwiches. So, and it creates a kind of curiosity and buzz to an employer who is just fascinated because they might not be from Augusta or they know what it's like to work there. And they go, tell me about this. So it's that curiosity thing that I would keep that in there even if you already had other things. You just never know. Some people might, do equestrian activities on the side and that somebody's a horse lover. You just never know. But, stay with the most relevant first and then be very selective about that.
Last one, including skills like professionalism, customer service, communication on your resume.
I tend to like skills that are more hard skills. Show me the actual softwares and platforms that you utilize, and then give me great examples of those things within the context of your job roles. Because you can say you have customer service skills, but you can also word it effectively to back that up in your resume. More people spend too much time regurgitating the activities of their job versus showing where they add value. And that's the biggest thing that we struggle with students on, is they're going to give you a job description that would be the same job description for anyone doing that same job. So again, what is unique about your contribution to that role?
I think that's a really good point, because for students that I've helped with resumes, I always tell them like those type of skills, when they're so vague, you can't really quantify them unless, like you say, you add that context to them. Right. So if you're putting just these vague words for skills, it's going to be kind of...
It's just filler to me.
Yeah, you're just missing an opportunity to tell them the hard skills, like like you said, the softwares, the platforms, the actual specialized skill sets that you do have.
And people who might go, well, I've just had this job in retail or restaurant, or, what point of sale system did you use? That's important. And they don't think about that because they're just they're using it versus, well, okay, chances are if you have a can't talk to that, familiarity with it, that might help you. Who knows?
Now, I guess this is like last question because I'm just curious to get your thoughts on it. I still see a lot of people put like Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word as a skill on the resume.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's fine to indicate specific platforms of Microsoft that you're familiar with, but I think it's more important to quantify what your level of knowledge or expertise is. So, for example, I can say I have Excel skills. I would say I have moderate Excel skills. I don't have highly proficient Excel skills. So, I don't think that there are times that people will be looking for certain things, but that's not, it just really depends. But if that's all they have, it's better than nothing, right?
That's true. It is better than nothing. I think, kind of going back into filler, I think a lot of people use like, oh, I know how to use Word or I know how to use PowerPoint.
Right.
And it's like, well, it's great that you know how to use it, but is that one of the best skills that you want to use that space for, right?
And, you mentioned interns because you've had interns yourself. And I think it's important for students. Well, two things. The supervisor should offer this, but I think it's important that the student initiates this conversation with their supervisor to go, all right, what is distinctive about, or where have you seen the best growth in me as a result of this experience? Because somehow you have to figure out how to weave that into the resume, because that's your ounce of different that sets you apart. So, the intern that you have this semester compared to the intern that you had 2 semesters ago. What is it that's, better, not as good, seeing the most growth? When you learn those things, and then you can figure out how to not only articulate that in a resume, but definitely in the interview, I think that's very important.
Julie, thank you so much for being here today.
Sure.
For those who want to learn more, where can they go to learn more about career services?
They can go to our website. It's augusta.edu/career services. And you can also find us in University Hall in Suite 210 here on the Summerville campus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Augusta University, an experience like no other.
What's up, y'all, and welcome back to In the Wild. We have a very, very special guest with us. She is the Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness, and she's going to talk a little bit about her team and some other fun stuff. So give a warm juggle welcome to Mickey Williford. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And just getting started, tell us a little bit about your role for the university and what your team does, because when a lot of people hear institutional effectiveness, they aren't really sure what that means.
Yeah, that happens a lot in the world, so, especially with folks outside of higher education. It's even harder. But so we oversee all the numbers and turning numbers, data into information. So we have a few analysts on our team who do some really neat things with statistics and data visualization. We also do the official reporting to the federal government and the Board of Regents in terms of data. So how many staff we have, how many students we have, how many faculty we have, that type of thing. We also manage planning, so academic program planning, so developing new programs, and also strategic planning, which obviously, Raysean, you were really involved in when we were creating a legacy like no other. And we also have project managers on staff who are assigned to major sort of big initiatives that we absolutely need to be successful. And so there's those project success is shepherded along with the professional project manager.
What does it feel like being so involved in these key projects for the university? I'm sure it must feel like really rewarding.
It's very rewarding. I can't imagine that there's one member of our team who isn't able to really see themselves in the success of this university. Even when we're just scheduling a meeting, that contributes to the success of the university, because it takes so many little things to come together to achieve the big things, and we get to be a part of all those levels and all of those. We get to interact with every member of President's Cabinet, but we also get to interact with program directors and department chairs and faculty through various efforts. We don't always get to engage with students as much as we'd like, but when we do, we really are rewarded by that, and we love to be able to fold them into any effort that we are managing or coordinating whenever we possibly can, because we love their input.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how your team is able to really reach out to really every part of campus and
That's right.
have an impact. How does your team go about getting the data and making those sound decisions and recommendations for projects?
They come a few different ways. I mean, some people just will say, hey, I have a question. And that's really what it starts with, is a question or a light bulb moment, an idea. And it finds its way to us either directly, or it may find its way through Dr. McKinnon, our provost, or another executive vice president, even the president sometimes. And then in other ways, they may happen organically. We have various planning councils or various committees that are thinking about the strategic plan, for example. And so when they're thinking about, well, what is it going to take for us to get to 16 by 30, a group like the Enrollment Planning Council, on which I serve, and also our Associate Vice President for Institutional Research, Holly Goodson, serves on that as well. We're in those conversations, and we're listening in for potential projects or potential analytics types of products that, that would, satiate that curiosity that is coming out of those discussions.
Switching gears a little bit, you are a double JAG.
Yeah.
And you've been able to experience Augusta State, Georgia Regents, and now Augusta University. Could you talk a little bit about your undergrad experience and what was that like?
Yeah. I actually started under Augusta College.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I started in 1993. It was Augusta College. And I pretty much was decided pretty early on that I wanted to be an English major. And that was one I always loved to read anyways, but I think it had to do with some really important English teachers in high school that led me to want to be an English major. And my parents were unusual in that they encouraged me to be an English major. They thought it sounded like a great program for me. And so, Augusta College, Augusta State, even then had really just a top-notch English department. That was something they were known for as one of the strengths for the entire system. And I was able to be a tutor with the writing lab then. What is now, of course, what the writing center is like now. It's amazing, and it's evolved into something even greater than it was then. But being a tutor in the writing center and being part of the English program and having defined my major very early on gave me a community immediately. So I immediately had my group, my people, my professors who I was able to seek out for mentorship and guidance, not just for academic guidance. And so I immediately felt a place of belonging when I was here. And actually, I even left the institution while it was still Augusta University. I went to University of Georgia for 9 months, and I didn't like it because I could never find my place. Having not started there, having not lived in housing, not really being able, it's hard to get a job on campus there, whereas I had a job on campus here. I just really was never able to get that sense of community there that I had here. And so that's why I came back and I finished here, and never thinking that I would end up essentially spending the rest of my life here in so many ways. But yeah, and then professionally I actually started at what was then the Medical College of Georgia. So it was really exciting when we got to the consolidation and I was able to be folded back in. It felt like coming home in so many ways, or returning to family after being gone for a long time. My office is on the other campus, but when I come to this campus, even though it looks remarkably different now, it always feels like I'm coming home, if that makes sense.
Do you think that your experience as a student has affected the effectiveness of the institution?
That's a great question, but yeah, I think so. I mean, I just really love this place. And I also really believe in Augusta University. I think it's the best kept secret in Georgia. And I'm trying to not make it a secret. I mean, I try to do my part, and I think Raysean does, and Katana, you're doing it too. It can't stay a secret forever.
Right.
It's kind of fun to be in on a secret, but it's really not what's best for Augusta University, but it's also not what's best for Georgia, because what we have to offer here is just remarkable. But yeah, I think it does. I don't think I ever stopped being a Jaguar, as a student or an alumnus in some ways, alumna, I guess. Yeah.
When you left as an undergrad or graduated as, did you ever think you would be working, especially in this capacity, for the university?
No. I graduated, I think it was 97, and all I knew was that I had good work experience. I had some jobs since I was 16, but I felt like I needed sort of more professional work experience. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go off and be an English professor, or I was also thinking about library studies, library sciences. And so I decided I'm just going to get a job for, a year or two, get some professional experience under my belt, full-time experience, actual 40-hour-a-week, experience under my belt, maybe get some benefits, some health insurance and all of that.
That's nice.
Yeah. And so I answered, of all things, believe it or not, a newspaper ad for a job in what was then institutional research at what was then Medical College of Georgia. And I was hired to be, the title was staff assistant, but it was my job was basically to support the SAC-COC accreditation for medical college. That was and they were just starting the initiative. It was about a 2-year initiative back then. That's how long accreditation. And I did mention accreditation as part of what institutional effectiveness does also. And that's how I cut my teeth, was on coordinating accreditation for the medical college, which was the university at the time. And then I just didn't leave. I was only going to stick it around for about 2 years, and then by then I would know what I wanted to do. And by the time the 2 years came up, I loved Medical College of Georgia. I loved working in a college environment. I liked college administration. I knew I didn't want to be a professor. I had decided that wasn't what was for me. And I'd also kind of fallen in love. I had, was seeing who would later become my husband. So there were just there were so many reasons to just stay. And so that's how I came to be sitting here today.
I love that. I love that story. So you're one of our distinguished alumni, who will be honored at Alumni Weekend coming up. How did you find out that you're going to be honored?
Yeah, well, I am not only a double JAG, but I'm also, I don't know what you would call me, but I'm also a double Pamplin JAG, because my master's degree came from the Master of Public Administration program, which I finished in 2005. So Dean Kim Davies actually called me on the phone. She called me and left a message, and we kept playing phone tag. And I thought, oh gosh, he hardly ever calls me. What's going on? I hope everything's okay. But she called me to let me know that I had been identified as Pamplin's Distinguished Alumna, which was just so sweet and so special to be able to hear from her. I actually knew her when she was a junior faculty member and I was a student.
Aww.
That was when I first encountered her. I never was in one of her classes, but I was definitely part of several discussion groups, and we back then. So as part of the folks who were interested in women's studies. So she led some women's studies discussion groups. So that's how I first got to know her. So that was neat as well, that it was not just the dean, but it was the dean who I have been able to watch grow up at this institution as well, from being a very, very, very young, because she is so young still, just as I am, faculty member.
That's awesome, that full circle moment.
Yeah.
It made me think of last year when she reached out to me via email to talk about the Young Alum Award, and she was very brief, and I just knew I was in trouble somehow, because I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was like, "Hey, I need you to give me a call, or sometime I have a question for you,"
That's
or
right.
something
That's right,
to that extent. And I'm like, "Oh gosh, what did I do?" But then she told me, so that's great.
Yeah.
Are there any events that you're excited for Alumni Weekend?
Yeah, I have to admit I'm really excited about the awards banquet. I will be taking my husband and my 2 children, and that's, many IE people tend to not like to be in the spotlight. That's not really who we are. And so I have learned over the years to force myself to step into the spotlight, and this is one of those moments where I'm doing that. And I think it's important for my children to see me doing that. And so I was very, I'm really excited for them to be a part of that that night along with me, and for them to meet not just my fellow alumni and folks who I've gone to school with, both in my undergraduate and graduate years, but also in my case, many of my colleagues as well. Particularly because I have to give a shout out to one of my special colleagues who is the Distinguished Young Alumni, Dr. Garrett Green.
Yeah.
Who from College of Education, and so so he and I work really closely together. So I'm really excited that I get to celebrate myself. That's important, but I also get to celebrate him and the other alumni as well that night. So I'm excited about that.
That's going to be really fun. For me, I always enjoy the President's Picnic, but it's also this year going to be the President's Brunch. So I'm like, yes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I love brunch.
I am a big fan of brunch. Do you think they're going to have Eggs Benedict?
I hope
We're going to have to go and find out.
Yeah.
Because, do you agree that is the king of all brunch meals?
it just depends on the mood, really. As long as the brunch has some sort of waffle.
Oh, okay.
I'll be satisfied.
You're like my son. Yeah, he always goes for the waffle. Yeah, he goes for the waffle every time.
So yeah, I'll go to that every year. As soon as I saw that the registration was open for it, I was there.
Yeah.
I beat the letter that I got in the mail to register. I was there online.
We'll have to maybe we'll wager a friendly bet, not not an illegal bet, but on whether or not they'll have waffles or bennies.
Oh, they have both.
And maybe we'll both win. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if they have them, we're both winners for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for telling us a little bit about institutional effectiveness, or IE as we like to call it. And we're really excited to see you get honored coming up later this month.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, Katana. And I'm so excited for you I'm excited about the day you're sitting in this seat today.
Thank you.
Raysean, or his successor, is interviewing you, because he'll probably have moved on to bigger things within Augusta University at that time.
Yeah, she's going to be a soon-to-be graduate.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is.
Hi, so I'm Dr. Lorraine Evans, and I'm the Executive Director of the Academic Success Center. Augusta University wants all of our students to be successful, inside and outside of the classroom. And the Academic Success Center is for that inside of the classroom part. We want all of our students to be able to reach their goals and their academic potential. At the Academic Success Center, we have peer tutors, and these are students who have taken the classes that you are now visiting them for, so they can help you learn the strategies and skills and things that you need to do for that course. We also have peer coaches, and peer coaches are going to help you with time management and new study strategies for those courses that you haven't had before. And then we have our workshops, and so once or twice a week we have workshops that are about topics specific to that week. So we'll have exam preparation workshops, or we'll have workshops about how to, manage your final schedule type thing. The Academic Success Center is here to help you be successful in your classes, and we hope to see you here.